All right, part two. We're back and we're in the studio. We're doing some, continuing our part two for our painting of a beautiful tropical scene in a nice, beautiful tropical area. This is a painting my mom did when she was in high school, and one of my favorite all-time watercolor paintings. We have it in the house hanging up. We talked about it in part one. If you haven't seen part one, please go back to part one, because we talked all about the colors that are in this painting, the design of the painting, how the design is laid out. We also talked about writing down and having a list of colors that we could set on our art table across from us, so that we kind of already know what colors we're going to be using, so that when we go to start to paint, we've already figured out, for the most part, what colors we're going to use. And so part one is really important to go to first. We go through contour drawing. How do we pencil sketch this drawing first? So we went through that. In part one, we looked at how different contour drawing effects you can have, with more of a lines or more of a free-flowing effect with your drawings. So lots of good stuff on part one. Please go back to part one if you haven't. If you're caught up and you have seen part one, great, we're at part two. So we're going to start to paint this now, this painting here. And again, this is my mom's painting. She did this in high school. Incredible. I can't believe how talented she was in high school, but this is just phenomenal. And we'll paint this. We've already did the drawing, and we're going to paint it. And I believe she said they were working from photographs back then in her art class in high school. So that's how they did this. They were all in the class doing this, or working from photographs. I'm not sure if the whole class did all of the same painting. So now I'm going to set this across from me in my studio on my art table. I'm going to take a piece of acetate plastic and put it over the top of the painting, so that if there's any splashing, it doesn't get on the frame or the glass. And we're set to go. And we're going to use our standard palette. Again, this is my standard palette. If you don't know my colors that I use and you want to refer back to them, it's real simple. You just type in my palette, Chris Petri. It'll give you all the names of all the colors. I basically use two different types of brands, and that's in that video. So let's set our palette down here. I usually hold my palette and work with my palette in my left hand, and then my brush is in my right. But we'll put it on the table next to us here for this painting. I'm more comfortable holding the palette versus leaving it on a table, but you can paint as you feel comfortable. And I will have some tissues handy to dry off my brush at times. If I need to take a little bit of water or paint off my brush, I use a tissue. I also use a sponge sometimes. So I'll leave this sponge over by my palette. I wet it first with some water, spritzer bottle. I always have a spritzer bottle. So I spritz the sponge to soften it up a little. If it needs some water, we just take our water container and we just add a little bit of water to it. So I always have fresh water right on hand, spritzer bottle. I'll spritz my paint before I start. And I'll usually, I have my water container. I'll take my brushes, and if I know I'm going to use a few different brushes, I'll take them and just wet them and set them on the table next to me, and then I can use them as I go. And we'll use round brushes today. Okay, so we're going to start painting. So again, we said we're going to go light to dark. So it's kind of pretty simple. We'll start to work our colors. Alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cadmium orange, and burnt umber, sap green, olive green, viridian green, cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue. So these are the colors. A little bit of yellow ochre we said too. We could put that there. Alright, so we'll go in and maybe we'll start off and we'll do some of these. And I'm actually trying to copy what I see on the painting. So even if I might normally do something different, I'm not going to really pay attention to that too much, and I'm going to try to paint what I'm actually, what my mom has painted here. Back in high school when she painted this, I'm going to try to copy the same exact thing she was painting, and trying to kind of use the same brush strokes as I see, and the same colors. I'm trying to just get the feel for the, I'm trying to kind of guess where the, okay, so that's what I'm seeing there. And then for the so here I'm doing the palm trees. And I'm also, as I paint, I'm realizing that we're going to go over with another darker tonal value on top of this. So we said this is a painting, we're going to do the glazing technique. So that means really we're going to do the lights first. So we're doing the lights now first. And then we're going to then go over the top with the darker tonal values. So I'm just trying to follow the curves with my brush of the palm trees to get the idea of that. And let's use some, so I'm going to do some of the okay, so that's the trunk of the palm tree. And then we'll work over here. We'll do this next palm tree. So again, I'm using sap green, a little bit of cobalt blue and French ultramarine blue. And again, I'm trying to go with the flow of the palms. So I could do either flow this way, or I can kind of move the brush this way outwards from the center of the palm tree. So you really can do the palm tree either way. You can kind of, or mix, like you can mix it up, like some of the branches you can come down from the center of the palm tree, and then some of them you can go back up. upwards. And again, we're going to copy what I'm seeing. So here, this was more of a and that's the other trunk of the other palm tree there. And I think now we can, maybe we'll start working the roof of that nice tropical house set in the forest here. And to give it a little bit of variation, I just add a little bit of the blue, cobalt blue, to the burnt umber, just so we have a little bit of and then I go carefully somewhat to get the roof. And I'm going to look back at the painting and kind of make sure I'm on track here for what I'm supposed to be doing as far as my colors. The colors look good. It's mostly a brown roof, brown color roof. And let's see what else. Okay, it's a little bit of a I'll wait to do the shadow under this roof until later. Maybe we'll let the roof area dry a little bit and we'll start working on, maybe over here we'll go back and we'll get some more green, some sap green, olive green, chromium of oxide. We'll use a little bit of that, a little bit of viridian green, and maybe we'll start doing some of these shapes here, the shapes of the trees back here. A little more viridian, cooler kind of color. Maybe a little bit of cobalt with that too. And again, you can take your time when you do this painting. I'm going a little quicker. I want to try to keep this reasonable time-wise. We could paint for hours here, but you might get bored of that if it's just, you know, if I'm taking my time. So I'll just kind of move at a quicker pace here. Watercolors tend to look good when you move at a faster pace, I think. Anyway, I feel that watercolors tend to, the way I like to paint anyway, a little bit freer and, you know, fun and moving at a good pace. And I wouldn't take tremendous amounts of time to paint a painting like this. It's sort of, when you paint a painting like this, you probably can see the quicker pace in the painting when it's finished. You kind of see that it's a freer kind of, you know, look to the painting. The brush strokes actually kind of like tell a story of how the painting was painted. So I'm just having fun here. And again, we're going to go over with a darker. I think I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium lemon yellow. And here there's lots of variety in tonal values in the painting, so I'm going to stick with that. Lots of variation in colors. There's some white of the paper I noticed in the painting, here and there. So we'll try to leave some of the whites of the paper throughout the painting. And I think it's always a good thing. You probably hear me say this a lot. Like if you're going to do something in a painting, it's good to repeat it over and over. So if you're going to leave white paper in a painting, when you're painting, you try to leave white paper everywhere on your painting. Like you wouldn't just leave white paper in one section and then all the rest of your painting would have paint. So you can use that white of the paper to actually have it's like a design pattern. So that's always a good thing to remember if you can. And then I just painted in the inside of the, this is like a clay flower pot over here on the side. So I kind of did a little bit of a and then over here I'm going to that red. There's some red over here. And then the ground has some browns and some reds, so we'll use some burnt umber and reds here. And some yellow ochre here. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. We have our lighter tonal values here again. So we're doing again the glazing technique, which is light washes first, and then we'll go over with the darker tonal values. One more thing we have to work on here is and we said our color scheme was basically red and green. So now we're kind of doing the reddish colors. Cadmium red and alizarin crimson. All right, and that's our first wash. And a little bit more sky. Let's see if we had some cobalt blue. There's a cloud back here. So Do the cloud going through the sky there, some more over here. And you could probably see if you refer back to the photograph or the painting in the beginning, I did things a little different, or I didn't get it exactly the same. Sometimes it happens if you're drawing or painting. It doesn't always go exactly like you might plan it or whatever, and that's no big deal. As long as we have the main idea of the picture that we're recreating here, we're in really good condition. And so again, I put in some of those sky clouds. And then I just pick up a little bit of paint with a tissue, and then we're probably going to have to come back to do a part 3. The reason I say that is I want to let this dry naturally, and to do the darks it's going to take another 15 minutes or so to probably block in all the darker tonal values in this painting. So instead of trying to rush through this and sort of make a mistake or have a problem, let's come back, we'll do a part 3. Part 3 we'll do all the darker tonal values in this painting, and you'll see how it really just ties everything together and makes everything look finished. Alright, so we'll be back for a part 3 in just a few minutes.